Wow, it's been so easy using Anchor for my podcast needs. I can edit it very easily on my cell phone. I can also use it on my computer, which is great. I can upload new pictures for each podcast if I need to. And the thing that I really appreciate it as a fledgling podcaster is that it's free. So I highly recommend it.
Welcome to EQ Above IQ, Parenting with Emotional Intelligence and Healing the Inner Child. My name is Trina Casey and I'm your host. Hello, and in this episode I'm talking about the difference between relative and absolutes in reference to happiness. We have spent 1,000 years of judging ourselves and others on relative scales, created and controlled by other people, when the absolute truth is that most of them don't matter. So we make ourselves happy or unhappy based on these truths, these relative truths. For example, most of us do not know what it's like to not have TV, movies, social media, things like that. So these particular people who own these big corporations and everything else decided to create a world not based on absolute truths, but the relative ones, like accumulating stuff, the car, the house, the partner that looks a certain way, the values, the belief systems around religion and spiritual stuff. These are not absolutes. They're all relatives to happiness. Because most of the time, the material things especially are not what make us happy. It's not what makes us happy. It does not make us happy. What really makes us happy is the experiences that we can have with those things. So it's not that you need a Mercedes car. You may need a car because that does give you certain experiences that you would not have without a car, like the ease of driving to work or going on a road trip, or just safety while on the street. There's all kinds of things that a car can provide, but does it have to be a Mercedes? No. But they use marketing and all kinds of things to make you think that is going to make you happier than a Toyota. And it's definitely not the billions of dollars in the bank that make you happy. It's what you do. Matter of fact, many of the lottery winners, they did this study back in 2015, I believe, that most lottery winners, after they win the lottery, the initial month or 3 after, they're not that much happier than they were before. And matter of fact, there was a study done by 2 economists and psychologists that actually said the threshold of happiness as far as coming from money, it stops at 75,000. Danny Kahneman and Angus Deaton, both Nobel Prize winners, whatever that means. But the point is this: they did this study, and they measured people's happiness based on, did you smile today? Was today stressful? Things like that. And they found that the majority of the people who had a higher level of happiness didn't change after 75,000. Now, this was based in the United States, of course, and that's a really good, decent amount of money. As a matter of fact, many college students that come out of these prestigious colleges like Yale and Harvard, they actually come out with that. And I think that's with that salary as their base. And I think that's part of the reason why we have certain structures, social structures that we do based on academics. And I'm going to get into a little story about that later. But everybody's always dreaming about winning the lottery, right? But it really doesn't change your level of happiness. It could provide you with the ability to have some more experiences, which is actually the root of most joy, is the memory and how we savor these experiences by even just recollecting that trip. I'm doing it all the time. When I think about the places that I've gone to and see, and that actually brings me joy. Just remembering those things. It's not that I could, if I buy a new dress or something like that. Matter of fact, I don't even shop like I did when I was younger, when I was probably less aware of this advertising that is perpetuated on us all the time. And it goes into our kids too, because of course, my son says he wants this game or that or this and that, and it's because it's constantly sold to them. And it's part of the reason why I'm not a fan of social media. I know I'm on social media, but I use it for my messaging. I remember the day I stopped looking at fashion magazines. And let me tell you, that was the day I felt the best about myself in the months after that. I didn't have this measure, this relative measure, that this woman who I could never look like, or I don't have the body type or anything like that. I didn't feel bad about myself anymore. And that's what I'm talking about, these relative scales that have been created to mainly make money. And also, I feel like on an energetic level, make us feel bad about ourselves. And when we feel bad about ourselves, it's hard to feel good about other people. It's hard to connect. And I feel, unfortunately, for the generation after mine who has lived with social media, these high levels of depression that are happening is based on the fact that they can't find happiness because it's based on all these relative truths and standards that they may never achieve to no fault of their own. It's like that TV show Friends. I remember watching that TV show Friends thinking, how the heck do these fresh out of college students afford this house, this lifestyle, and all this stuff? These were all relative truths perpetuated to make us feel like we need that to be happy, to be cool, to be Chandler or whatever his name. I need this haircut to look like Jennifer Aniston. I'm not going to be able to have that haircut. So what's going to happen? I'm going to feel bad about myself because I'm comparing myself against this standard that is relative. It's not absolute, No physical attribute is absolute. It's impossible. So we're living our lives in this relative state of existence all the time, and we're judging ourselves on it all the time. And it's causing a lot of emotional distress. And for example, if you have this friend who is always posting pictures of herself, or let's not say a friend. Let's say a celebrity, because celebrity has become the relative truth of our existence. And the truth is that they're just products as well, because they're selling products as well, and they drive the economy as a tool. Not that they're not individuals, but they choose a career that puts them in that position, and it has become a position of power. And some celebrities I know really use their platform for positive things, and it's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm no way near a celebrity, but I'm trying to use my platform as a way to trigger awareness around emotional intelligence. And that's why I write the books that I write for children, to teach them the 5 principles of emotional intelligence. And that's why I wrote a free book that you can go on the website and get at This Real Life Books, to talk about how parenting, you can use the 5 steps of 5 principles of emotional intelligence in parenting. I use it for something that is not relative, it's absolute. There's things that we can do to make ourselves happier and make ourselves more emotionally intelligent. And there's tons of studies to prove that it's true. So I'm trying to shift the mindset of people with this type of messaging, with this type of information. So one of the things that I had a conversation with my son about just recently, and his teacher actually, is academia. And there's a reason why I named this podcast EQ Above IQ, because I feel like emotional intelligence is far more important because it leads to higher IQ. And currently, the education system, and I've talked about this in the past in previous episodes, but I'm talking about it again because I got really emotionally triggered by a conversation. I got a message saying that I needed to have a meeting about my son's where he is in school. And of course, I wasn't going to wait that far out, because I'm always diligently trying to figure out what's going on, because he's had such a emotionally challenging time in the education system. So I called the teacher and said, so tell me what's going on. I'm not going to wait 2 weeks to have a meeting with you. What's going on? Because if you want, I can help solve the problem if we talk about it now. But for some reason, there is a fear, I think, and the fear is based on these relative truths about how they feel emotionally about being challenged by a person that looks like me. And I could be wrong, but my experience has been in the past here that because I articulate myself in a confident way, that I'm intimidating. I find that to be ridiculous and pretty much racially charged, but I still do what I'm going to do, because I encourage all parents to be diligent about their child's education and in their emotional well-being. So I ask, what's going on, and they were concerned about his level since coming out of the pandemic. And to me, I find that to be ridiculous. Of course, we did do homeschool and online like everybody else, but one of the things that's missing, and I think this is a global phenomenon because of COVID, they're missing the fact that this is a very difficult emotional time for children, and that's where we need to be focusing. If you insist on showing the news to my child at school, you better have ways to nurture his emotional state after that. And yes, they're showing the news at his school, and I don't believe in those type of messaging, because the news is not reported just with facts. The news is reported with opinions, and those opinions are relative, and they're not absolute. Therefore, it causes emotional distress in some people. And let me tell you, just like the magazines, I stopped looking at the news in the same way. Because First of all, most of it is not based on absolute truth. It's opinions. And so I stressed my opinion about that. And I also said, why are we focusing on this right now? I feel like what the kids need is a feeling of peace. And when they have a feeling of peace and not competition, because it's always a competition about who can finish faster, who can, who's going to get the best grade. And it's not being monitored, because my son's coming home telling me, he's feeling bad about it. And I say, no, you take your time. You don't care about those judgments. Judgments, relative judgments, not absolutes. You don't have to be a person that does one problem in 1 minute. You can do it in 2 minutes. The point is, the absolute is getting it right in the end and feeling good about it and feeling good about the fact that you got it right. So there's these education standards that are constantly being perpetuated on us since our childhood, that make us feel a certain way about ourselves, that affects our levels of happiness and joy. And so, I am really against this, obviously, in school, but also because I'm against it in social media and television. And I don't know if you guys have seen this controversy about this Netflix show called Cuties. And I sincerely feel for the woman who made this movie from Senegal. She really thought she was creating a quality movie about her experience and how she grew up. But here's the issue. It does sexualize little girls. I watched it. And though her message is that she's against that, the way that it was done actually kind of promotes the problem. It gives fodder for the people who have the sick minds to look at children and little girls in particular in that way. I'm sorry, I watched some of it and I was like, this is a pedophile's dream, on regular television. And so I am of the mind that it's not the correct way to express the story in a movie. And that's my personal opinion. Others may feel differently. But when you have all these problems around around pedophilia and sexualization of children, you can't really expect people to respond differently. It's a problem. So media is such a powerful tool, and we can use it in a positive way to move humanity forward in an emotionally intelligent way, or we can use it in the old way to make us feel less than, to make us measure ourselves against relative truths and ideas and things that make us feel bad about ourselves. So I'm really processing a lot of this difference between relatives and absolute truth. I'm reading a lot about it because I think it's actually what stems a lot of the racial strife that we have, because what we're always judging people on something somebody else says, not what is absolute truth. So somebody, 400 or 500 years ago said that Black people were not human, they're savages. And because there was an economic gain from that thought process, from that relative truth, then it became the norm, and it trickulated it trickled down to everything in life. And it didn't make happiness go up for people. People were not happier because of this basically not true, this lie said about people of color all over. It just doesn't, it's not just Black people, it's Asians, it's everyone really, from Irish, Italians. There's always some lie created to make money, or to preserve money, or to preserve power. And so I really want people to learn the difference between absolutes and absolute truth and relative truth. And so I've come up with some tips, especially around social media, that use emotional intelligence in order to snap yourself into reality, basically. Snap yourself into reality and actually increase your feeling of happiness. One of the things that I recommend that people do is, when you get off of your social media drug of choice, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is, I want you to become self-aware. I want you to feel what you are feeling in your body. Are you feeling good after that experience? Are you feeling, if you're feeling lower, or you're feeling like, man, so-and-so, it looks like they have such a better life than me. I want you to regulate that emotion right there. I want you to stop it. Matter of fact, I want you to say the word stop. Stop the cycling of those thoughts immediately and say to yourself, that's not an absolute truth. I don't know if so-and-so is happier than me from a photo. That's just a photo. I don't know if this celebrity is living their best life because they're in a Mercedes and I drive a Toyota. I don't know this. So I want you to take the relatively out and make it an absolute truth, because that's the absolute truth. An image cannot make you happier or unhappy. Okay? You can't tell what somebody's life is from an image. So then I want you, if this is a friend of yours, for example, who decides that they're going to post a selfie, which I find funny. I always call them lonelies, because I always go, oh, wow, nobody's there to take a picture for them. So they have to do these little duck faces. I'm guilty of it too, but I'll be honest, it's because, I'm working on social media to bring people into my messaging. And that's what they're doing. But usually it's based on bringing somebody into money. Mercedes wants to sell a car, so they use a celebrity to sit in that car and say, hey, look at me, I'm cool. And now they're actually making people say, this is a sponsored ad from so-and-so, and this is my partners. Okay, there's people making millions of dollars on social media, and that's why they do it, through this. So I'm not going to knock people from making their green, but I want everyone else to be aware that's what they're doing. Okay, and that measurement does not have to be there. You do not need to measure your happiness or where you're at in your life or your well-being on what that message is giving you. Like, you're not, I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but that's an ad, basically. People are advertising. So, and if you are seeing a friend of yours do that, you know what? I want you to go to this step: empathy, compassion. I want you to give that person a call and check in on them. Say, how are you? I noticed you put that post. You look great. I'm sure they want to hear that. Everybody wants validation. So I just wanted to check in and see how you were. What we're missing right now, more than anything, is connection. And social media has given a false sense of connection, and it's actually causing an increase of depression in children and adults because it gives you a false sense of connection. So check in, like really check in. I know that making a phone call is a weird thing nowadays, but it's like text me, you know. I really think it's taken our ability to energetically connect away. So use the phone for something that can cause good, that can cause joy. Get on the phone and actually have a phone conversation, okay? Then that leads to the final principle of don't let me forget the motivation piece. So I said self-awareness, regulate. Now the motivation behind posting that is money. Okay, just want to make sure I didn't miss that principle. Somebody say, hey, you missed one of the 5 principles. I only heard 4. So the motivation piece was to make money or perpetuate an image. So, and then you have the final, which is social skills. Let's go out and connect with people. I want you, after going through all those phases of thinking about why people are posting and all this social stuff, and take the steps to connect with other people socially. So that's the phone call, calling your friend, being compassionate, checking in. But it's also walking out in the street and smiling at somebody. I know living here in Amsterdam, you smiling at somebody is kind of weird to them, but I do it anyway. I don't care if they think it's weird, because that's a reflection of my inner state as well. And you can change your inner state by just telling your body and go to your brain to smile. Like when I'm recording these podcasts, I'm smiling the entire time. And I don't know if you can hear that in my voice, but when I used to work in as a corporate trainer for a telecommunications company, I used to say, smile. Even if you don't feel like it, smile, because the smile comes through the phone. It really does. So go out there, smile at somebody. If you don't get a smile back, it doesn't matter, but most of the time it's contagious. So smile at somebody and give somebody a compliment, okay? We have to have these acts of kindness in order to change what's going on in this relative world. And I think that once we finally start to see the repercussions, or the effects of all this positive reinforcement of validating people, we can change so much. I've been involved with a few conversations with people, aka debates, around race lately, and it's nothing bad. It's norm, but one of the things that I recognize is that all of this hate in unhappiness is due to a long history of people not feeling good enough, feeling small from some reason, whether it's through some type of abuse or trauma. And I honestly believe that a lot of the racial issues that we're having, mostly perpetuated by white supremacy, is due to them not really feeling that great about who they are and having to go out throughout the whole world and proving that they were good, and they didn't really need to. But that was because they lived in a country, somewhere in Europe, where there was huge economic class differences. There was a lot of abuses of rights. There was the molestation. There's the church. There was a lot of things happening within Europe, and they just took that out into the other world, into the rest of the world. And yeah, there's a clear timeline, and I know there are a lot of people who try to fight and refute that and say, well, these things happened in other countries. Yeah, sure, they did. But somebody took extra steps to go out. That's all I'm saying. There was slavery in Africa. There was slavery in other parts of the world. Yes, there was. But there was a particular group that took it a step further and became very wealthy and powerful off of the trade. So, anyways, that's just a little side note. What I'm saying is that a lot of our problems were caused by these judgments, these relative ideas and things that are not based on truths. And so if we can get to a place where we can admit and acknowledge that is the truth, and I see it happening more and more, so I'm very hopeful that a lot of people are not falling for the materialism and they're actually doing more aware and social causes to make change. I see it happening, but I'd love to see it fast forward a little bit more, and I'd like to see a lot more healing in the world. So anyways, if you would like more resources on what I'm talking about today, please go to thisreallifebooks.com, and I hope those tips kind of help you realign and create some clarity around your ability to distinguish between relative and absolute truths, and to increase your personal level of happiness. And then we can help our kids do the same, because we are their models. They are our mini-me's. And so if we can get our own thoughts, processes, and mindset clear, we can help guide them, because they're going to be who they're going to be on a path to more happiness. And I hope you have a blessed day.